All right, diving in today with a really important set of English vocab,
Yeah, crucial stuff.
especially if you're prepping for those postgraduate entrance exams.
Absolutely.
Specifically, we're looking at Day 12, Unit 3, sections 34 through 52.
Big chunk of vocab there.
It is, but the thing is, we don't just want to memorize these words, right?
Oh, no way. Gotta go deeper than that.
Exactly.
We're talking about understanding them, using them like you own them.
Exactly.
That's what makes the difference, between just passing an exam and really thriving in your field.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
These words, they're the building blocks for everything you'll be doing, academically, professionally.
Communication is everything.
It really is. And, we've got our trusty source material right here. Definitions, examples, past exam questions, the whole 9 yards.
Let's unlock this vocabulary treasure chest, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, kicking things off with a word that seems pretty basic on the surface, but, as with a lot of these words, there's more to it than meets the eye. Remove.
Okay, remove.
Just to get us started.
Yeah, the classic definition, to take something away, to move it.
Yeah.
Like in that example they give us, he removed his hand from her shoulder. Pretty straightforward, right?
Totally. But the cool thing is, you can remove so many different things. Like a physical object,
Of course, yeah.
you can remove a problem, you can remove someone from a job.
You can remove your hat when you go inside.
Exactly. It's all about making something not be there anymore.
Right.
And then you've got the noun form removal,
Mm-hmm.
which can cover everything from, actually moving furniture to more abstract concepts like the removal of trade barriers.
Big implications.
Huge. And this is where that word family knowledge comes in handy.
Absolutely.
We see that meet move root,
All right.
connecting it to words like motion and movement.
Yeah, those connections make all the difference.
They really do. It's like building a web of meaning.
It is a web of meaning. I like that.
Right. And then when we look at the exam context, we see how this seemingly simple word can take on a whole new level of complexity.
Oh, for sure.
So there's an example about immigration raids that remove some workers. Now, obviously, we're not taking sides here. We're just looking at how the word is being used.
Right. Just analyzing.
Neutral ground.
Totally. And in this case, remove isn't just about physically relocating people.
Much bigger than that.
Exactly. It's got those legal and social implications.
Right. The impact on people's lives.
And the potential for labor shortages. It all ties back to that one word.
Wow. So you really have to consider the context.
You do, because it's a huge difference between saying, please remove the dishes from the table,
Right.
and saying, the surgeon will remove the tumor. Same verb, but the stakes are completely different.
Night and day.
Totally. So as you're studying these words, think about all those different shades of meaning.
Yeah, and how they can be used in different situations.
Exactly, because the exam is all about nuance. It is. It's testing your depth of understanding.
Okay, moving on to a word that's pretty fundamental to the human experience.
I'm intrigued.
Emotion.
Emotion.
The heart of the matter, right?
Feels.
The feels. Exactly. And our source defines it as a strong feeling, passion, sentiment, mood.
Covers a lot of ground.
It does. It's that intense inner experience that drives so much of what we do.
Right. What makes us...
Totally. And then you've got the adjective emotional, which seems to be everywhere these days.
It's true. We're all about expressing our emotions.
Right. And the U actually gives us a really interesting example of this.
Oh, lay it on me.
It says, consequently, our feelings, thoughts, and emotions have undergone a corresponding change.
Okay, so it's all connected.
Exactly. It's not like these things exist in isolation.
It's a chain reaction.
Right. One emotion can trigger a whole cascade of thoughts and feelings.
Fascinating. So you're saying understanding emotion is about more than just defining it.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing its power and how it shapes our experience.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
And it's not always sunshine and roses, right?
Unfortunately not.
The source also mentions emotional problem stress. That's where it can become a bit tricky.
Yeah, when emotions get out of hand.
Exactly. Because while emotions are a natural part of being human,
Of course.
they can also lead to difficulties if they're too intense or if we don't manage them effectively.
Right, like when someone says their voice was full of emotion, you don't know if they're about to burst into tears or laughter.
Exactly. Or if someone's struggling to control their emotions, that tells us a lot about their internal state.
Powerful stuff.
It is. So understanding emotion in all its complexity is definitely key for the exam and for life in general.
Agreed. Okay, what's next?
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the opposite end of the spectrum.
I'm ready for a change of pace.
Okay, so the word is rational.
Rational. Interesting.
All about logic and reason.
Head over heart.
Exactly. Thinking things through, making sense of the world in a clear and systematic way.
Love it. Give me that definition.
So rational means reasonable, logical, sensible, intelligent, sane.
Makes sense.
And we've got a nice little word family here to help us remember all the variations.
Oh, I love those.
Rationally, the adverb, rationalization, which is a noun.
Right, like when we're trying to justify our actions, even if they're not the best.
Exactly. Sometimes we bend logic to fit our desires.
It's true. We've all been there.
And then there's rationale, also a noun, referring to the logical basis for something.
Okay, so rational and rationale sound similar but have distinct meanings.
Exactly. That's one of those subtle distinctions that the exam loves to throw at you.
Tricky.
And rationalization, as we said, often has a bit of a negative connotation.
Right, like you're trying to make excuses.
Precisely. The source actually gives a great example of how rational can be used to highlight the absence of logic.
Okay, what is it?
It says, there is no rational explanation for his actions.
Oh, I see.
Immediately raises a red flag.
Yeah, like what's going on here?
Exactly. And then we have a do sentence that really dives into the complexity of rationalization.
Okay, this is what I'm here for.
It says, this seems a justification for neglect of those in need and a rationalization of exploitation.
Wow, that's a loaded sentence.
It is. And again, we're not taking sides, just analyzing.
Right, neutral observers.
Exactly. But you can see how rationalization is being used here in a pretty critical way.
Yeah, like it's a way to make something bad seem acceptable.
Precisely. So understanding that nuance is key for the exam.
Got it. Rationalization is about more than just explaining something.
It often have that manipulative undertone.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about the opposite of rational?
Yes, let's talk about irrational.
Irrational, the land of emotions and impulses.
Exactly, when logic goes out the window.
Sometimes for the best, sometimes not.
So true, and the definition is pretty straightforward. Not reasonable or logical. Senseless.
Simple and to the point.
And the source gives us this great example. Consumers are sometimes irrational.
Oh, tell me about it. Impulse buys galore.
Right, we've all been there. That's irrationality in action.
And what about like phobias? Those are pretty irrational, right?
Absolutely. Like a fear of spiders, even tiny harmless ones.
It makes no sense logically, but the fear is real.
Exactly. That's the power of the irrational. It can override our logical thinking.
Okay, I think I'm getting a handle on irrational.
Great. And now for a word that's closely related to both rational and irrational.
Oh, there's more.
There's always more. The word is reasonable.
Reasonable. Okay.
So this one means fair, just, acceptable, not too bad. It shares some common ground with rational, but it often has a stronger emphasis on what's fair and practical in a given situation.
Right, so it takes context into account.
Exactly. While rational is all about pure logic, reasonable considers what's expected or appropriate.
Got it. So it's like meeting in the middle.
Exactly, finding that balance.
Okay, so what kind of examples do we have for reasonable?
The source gives us this one. We have reasonable grounds for believing that you are responsible.
Interesting.
So it suggests that there's enough evidence to justify a certain conclusion.
Right, like it's not just a random accusation.
Exactly. There's a logical basis for it.
Okay. And what about that we talked about?
Yes, the one about taking reasonable measures to ensure that phone data are not erased.
Oh, right, data privacy stuff.
Exactly. And again, we're not taking sides, just analyzing.
Of course, neutral as always.
Absolutely. But you can see how reasonable is being used here to describe actions that are practical and justifiable, not necessarily the most extreme measures.
Right, like finding a balance between security and individual rights.
Exactly. So reasonable often comes into play when there are competing interests or values.
Okay, that makes sense. So in everyday conversation, you might say something like, the price is reasonable.
Absolutely, meaning it's fair for what you're getting.
Or she gave a reasonable explanation, meaning it was logical and made sense in context.
Perfect examples. And don't forget the adverb form, reasonably.
Right, got to cover all our bases.
Now, let's talk about something that's generally a good idea to be.
I like good ideas.
I think we all do. The word is advisable.
Advisable, okay.
Meaning recommended, wise, prudent.
Like a helpful suggestion?
Exactly. It's not a command, but it's definitely pointing you in the right direction.
Okay, so what are some examples of things that are advisable?
Well, the source gives us a couple good ones. Early booking is advisable.
Oh, yes, especially if you're traveling.
Especially if you want to get a good deal.
Right, makes sense.
And then there's this one. It is advisable to save money for your children.
Timeless wisdom.
It really is. And it's not just about big life decisions.
Yeah, like what about everyday stuff?
Totally. You might say, it's advisable to check the weather forecast before you go hiking.
Unless you like getting soaked.
Exactly. Unless you're into that kind of thing.
Okay, I think I'm getting a feel for advisable.
Great. And now let's move on to a word that's all about being easily perceived.
Bring it on.
The word is noticeable.
Noticeable, okay.
Meaning easily seen, obvious, apparent. Something that stands out.
Okay, I can see that.
Right. And there's a really cool connection here with the verb notify.
Oh, I love these connections.
Me too. They make it so much easier to remember.
Right, so how are they related?
Well, notify means to inform or make someone aware of something.
Okay.
So if you notify someone, you're making something noticeable to them.
Ah, I see, like drawing attention to it.
Exactly. The source gives us some helpful examples. There is a noticeable difference between the two brands.
Okay, like maybe one is brighter or has a different design.
Exactly. Something that sets them apart.
Right, and what about that other example?
Yes, it says, her scars are hardly noticeable now.
Meaning they've faded over time.
Precisely. So noticeable can describe both positive and negative things.
Interesting. It's all about how easily something is perceived.
Exactly. And if there's a noticeable change in a situation, you might want to notify the relevant people.
Right, like if there's a crack in the foundation of a building or something.
Exactly. So you can see how these words work together in real-world scenarios.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about noteworthy?
Yes. Noteworthy, another great word.
What's the difference between noticeable and noteworthy?
That's a great question. So while noticeable is about being easily perceived,
Okay.
noteworthy goes a step further.
How so?
It means significant, remarkable, important.
So it's not just that you can see it, it's that it matters.
Exactly. It deserves attention because it's special in some way.
Got it. So a scratch on your car might be noticeable, but winning a Nobel Prize is noteworthy.
Perfect example. And the source gives us some good ones, too. It is noteworthy that only 15% of senior managers are women.
Okay, highlighting a significant statistic.
Right, something that deserves further consideration.
And what about that other one?
Yes. The bridge is noteworthy for its sheer size.
Emphasizing a remarkable quality.
Exactly. And you might say his achievements are noteworthy, meaning they're impressive and deserve recognition.
Okay, so noteworthy is all about standing out for a reason.
Exactly. It's got that extra layer of importance.
Got it. Now, are we ready to move into the realm of doubt?
Let's do it. Our next word is skeptical.
Skeptical. Oh.
Meaning doubting, unconvinced, questioning.
Like a healthy dose of critical thinking.
Exactly. Not just accepting things at face value, wanting more evidence before you believe something.
I like that attitude. Always question everything.
Right. And the source gives us this simple example. I'm skeptical about his chances of winning.
Maybe he hasn't been training hard enough?
Maybe, or maybe the competition's just too tough.
Right. There could be lots of reasons.
Exactly. And then we have this really fascinating sentence. Art became more skeptical of happiness.
Whoa, that's deep.
It is, right? It suggests that art started to question the very idea of happiness, to explore its complexities and contradictions.
Very philosophical.
It is, and it shows how skeptical can be used in a more abstract way, not just doubting a person's abilities, but questioning a whole concept.
Wow, I never thought about skeptical like that.
Right, and you might also say, I'm skeptical of these miracle cures, meaning you're not convinced that they actually work.
Yeah, good to be cautious.
Absolutely. So skeptical is a powerful word that encourages us to think critically.
Okay, I'm definitely feeling more skeptical now.
Good. That's the goal. And building on that theme of doubt, we have dubious.
Dubious, okay.
This one means doubtful, uncertain, suspicious, unreliable. It's like skepticism with an extra layer of wariness.
Like you sense something's not quite right.
Exactly. The source gives us a couple of examples that illustrate this perfectly. The man who sold it to him was known to be of dubious character.
Oh, that sets off alarm bells.
It does, right. It immediately makes you question his motives.
Totally. And what about the other example?
This one says, they consider the plan to be of dubious benefit to most families.
Meaning it's not clear if it will actually help.
Exactly. The benefits are questionable, maybe even non-existent.
Okay, so it's a step beyond just being skeptical.
Right. Dubious often implies that there's something shady or untrustworthy going on.
Got it. So if you're buying something online and the seller has a bunch of negative reviews, you might say their reputation is dubious.
Perfect example. And you could also say, his explanation sounds rather dubious, meaning you suspect he's not being entirely truthful.
Okay, I'm starting to see the difference.
Great. And now for a word that's closely related to dubious, but often focuses more on the feeling of uncertainty.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
The word is doubtful,
It's a doubtful, all right?
meaning uncertain, unlikely.
So it's more about the probability of something.
Exactly. The source gives us this example. It's doubtful if this painting is a Picasso.
Okay, so you're not sure if it's authentic.
Right. You're questioning its origin or legitimacy.
Got it. And what about the sentence?
This one says, and whether the community's work contributes much to an overall accumulation of knowledge is doubtful.
So it's casting doubt on the impact of their work.
Exactly. And in an everyday conversation, you might say something like, it's doubtful that it will rain today, based on the weather forecast or what you see outside.
Right, you're making a judgment about the likelihood of something happening.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So while dubious often has that negative connotation,
Right, like suspicious.
doubtful is more about the probability or certainty of something.
Okay, I think I can keep those straight.
Great. And now let's move from the realm of doubt to the realm of things that aren't clear.
Oh, I can relate to that.
I think we all can. The word is ambiguous,
Ambiguous, all right.
meaning unclear, vague, having more than one possible meaning.
Like when you get instructions that could be interpreted in multiple ways.
Exactly. Not helpful at all. And the source gives us a great example. Her account was deliberately ambiguous.
Okay, so she's being intentionally vague.
Right. Maybe she's trying to hide something or avoid giving a direct answer.
That makes sense. And what about the you?
This one says, but discovery frequently follows an ambiguous and complicated route.
So it's acknowledging that the path to new knowledge is often unclear.
Exactly. And it highlights the fact that ambiguity isn't always a bad thing.
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes it's necessary or even intentional, but it can definitely create confusion if it's not handled carefully.
Right, like the rules of a game are ambiguous, it's going to be hard to play.
Totally. And you might say the instructions were ambiguous and difficult to follow, which is when ambiguity becomes a problem.
Okay, I'm starting to see the nuances of ambiguous.
Great. And now let's dim the lights a bit and talk about the word dim.
Dim. Yeah.
So this one has a few different shades of meaning, just like light itself.
I'm intrigued.
It can literally mean not bright, faint, like a dim light bulb,
Right.
but it can also be used figuratively to describe things that are unclear or obscure.
Okay, like a dim memory.
Exactly. Like you're trying to remember something, but it's hazy and indistinct.
Yeah, I've had plenty of those.
And dim can also describe prospects that are not promising, like a dim future.
Oh, that's not good.
Not ideal, right? The source gives us this example. Her future career prospects look dim.
Ouch. That's tough.
Yeah, not the most optimistic outlook.
And what about the B example?
Ah, yes. This one's about experiments where output actually increased even when lighting was dimmed.
Oh, so it's referring to the literal lack of brightness.
Exactly. And in everyday conversation, you might say the room was dimly lit to create a certain mood or atmosphere.
Right, like a romantic dinner or something.
Totally. Or you could say he had a dim memory of the event, meaning he couldn't quite recall the details.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing the different ways dim can be used.
Awesome. And now let's talk about a word that often describes situations we'd rather avoid.
I'm all ears.
The word is dilemma,
Dilemma. Okay.
meaning a difficult situation with two or more choices, none of which are entirely desirable.
Oh, I know those all too well, like being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. No easy way out. And the source examples really capture this feeling. They were caught in a real dilemma.
Maybe they had to choose between two equally bad options.
Exactly. Or maybe each option had both positive and negative consequences.
Right, a classic lose-lose situation.
And the other example says, I could see no way of resolving this moral dilemma.
So it's about a conflict of values.
Precisely, when doing the right thing is difficult or even impossible.
And in everyday conversation, you might say, she faced the dilemma of choosing between two job offers, even if both jobs have drawbacks.
Absolutely. It's that lack of a perfect solution that defines a dilemma.
Okay, I think I'm getting a good grasp of dilemma.
Great. And now let's consider a word that can add depth and complexity to our understanding of the world.
Bring it on.
The word is dimension.
Dimension, okay.
So this one has both a literal and a figurative meaning.
I love those double meanings.
Me too. They make language so much more interesting.
Right, so what are the different meanings of dimension?
Well, literally it refers to a measurement like length, width, or height.
Okay, the physical dimensions of something.
Exactly. And the source gives us this example. We measured the dimensions of the kitchen.
Pretty straightforward.
Right. But then figuratively, dimension can refer to an aspect, feature, or scope of something.
Like adding another layer of meaning.
Exactly. The source gives us this example. Her job added a new dimension to her life.
Okay, so it brought new experiences and challenges.
Precisely. And you might say a painting has a three-dimensional effect, meaning it looks like it has depth.
Right, like it's popping off the canvas.
Totally. Or you might say a complex issue has a significant social dimension, meaning it has important social implications.
Okay, so dimension can really expand our understanding of things.
It can. It helps us see things from different perspectives.
Got it. Now what about cement?
Ah, yes, cement. Another word with both literal and figurative meanings.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
There's definitely a theme. So as a noun, cement is that binding substance used in construction.
Right, the stuff that holds bricks together.
Exactly. And the source gives us this example. Use a mixture of 1 part cement to 4 parts sand.
Pretty standard construction stuff.
It is, but then as a verb, cement takes on a more figurative meaning.
Okay, I'm interested.
It means to join firmly, strengthen, often in the context of relationships or ideas.
So it's about solidifying something.
Precisely. And the yeast actually gives us a great example of this. They could cement the status quo of peer-reviewed research.
Okay.
So in this case, cement means to make the existing system stronger and more resistant to change.
Right, like solidifying their power.
Exactly. And you might say the agreement helped to cement relations between the two countries, meaning it made the bond stronger and more stable.
Okay, so cement can be used in a lot of different ways.
It can.
Yeah.
And understanding both its literal and figurative meanings is key for the exam.
Got it. Now, are we ready to talk about some more emotionally charged words?
Let's do it. Our next word is distress.
Distress, okay.
So this one could be both a noun and a verb.
Oh, those are always fun.
They keep us on our toes. So as a noun, distress means worry, sorrow, pain, suffering, hardship.
Wow, that's a lot of negative emotions packed into one word.
It is. It's a state of significant unease or suffering, both emotional and physical.
Right, like a real sense of anguish.
Exactly. And the source gives us this example. The newspaper article caused the actor considerable distress.
Okay, so emotional suffering caused by something external.
Precisely. And then we have a sentence that shows how distress can manifest in children.
Oh, I'm curious.
It says, the child becomes increasingly distressed as she tries to capture her mother's attention.
So the child's feeling anxious and upset.
Exactly. And you might say, she was in great distress after losing her job, highlighting both the emotional and the practical hardships.
Right, it's a multifaceted word.
It is. And then we have stress, which is closely related to distress, but often focuses more on the mental and emotional aspects.
Okay, stress, everyone's favorite word.
It's definitely a buzzword these days. And as a noun, it refers to mental pressure, emphasis, importance, accent.
So it's that feeling of being overwhelmed or under pressure.
Exactly. And the source gives us this example. The incident has caused enormous stress and anxiety to my family.
Oh, I can relate to that.
I think most of us can. And then there's this fascinating sentence that says, people are actually more stressed at home than at work.
Wow, that's surprising.
It is, isn't it? It challenges our assumptions about where stress comes from.
Right, we often think of work as being the main source of stress.
We do, but this suggests that our personal lives can be just as demanding.
And as a verb, stress means to emphasize.
Exactly, like a speaker stressing the importance of education.
Right, highlighting a key point.
And the adjective form is stressful,
Okay, so we've got stress, stressed, and stressful.
all covering different aspects of this very modern phenomenon.
And I think it's safe to say that this whole vocabulary deep dive is pretty stressful.
It can be, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
True, knowledge is power.
Exactly. And now let's talk about a word that describes an even more intense form of unhappiness than stress or distress.
Oh boy, I'm ready for this.
The word is misery,
Misery. Okay.
meaning great unhappiness, suffering, poverty, wretchedness.
Wow, that's a heavy one.
It is. It's a profound state of suffering and despair.
Not a good place to be.
Definitely not. And the adjective form is miserable, which we all know and love.
I wouldn't say love, but I definitely know it.
Right. And the source gives us some examples that really emphasize the severity of misery. Fame brought her nothing but misery.
Oh, the irony.
It is, right. It suggests that what we often think of as success can actually lead to unhappiness.
Deep.
And the other example says, people in earlier eras were surrounded by reminders of misery.
painting a pretty bleak picture.
It does, and you might say they lived in abject misery, highlighting the extreme level of suffering.
Okay, so misery is about more than just feeling down.
It's a profound state of unhappiness and despair.
Got it. Now what about physical pain?
Ah, yes, let's talk about painful.
Painful, okay.
This one means causing physical or emotional pain. Difficult.
So it covers both types of pain.
Exactly. The source gives us these examples. My ankle is still too painful to walk on.
Okay, the physical kind.
Right. And then there's this interesting sentence that says, why do people read negative internet comments and do other things that will obviously be painful?
So emotional pain, the kind that comes from social interactions.
Precisely. And you might say, the divorce was a painful experience for everyone involved, highlighting the emotional toll.
Right, because breakups can be really tough.
They can. And it reminds us that pain isn't just about physical sensations.
Agreed. And what about more extreme forms of pain?
Yes. Let's talk about torture.
Torture, okay.
This one can be both a noun and a verb, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
I'm listening.
So as a noun, torture is severe pain inflicted to punish or force information.
Wow, that's intense.
It is, and it often involves physical violence or psychological manipulation.
Right, not something you want to experience.
Definitely not. And the source gives us these examples. Many of the rebels were captured and tortured by secret police.
Oh, that's awful.
It is, and then there's this other example that shows how torture can be used in a more figurative sense. He spent his life tortured by the memories of his childhood.
So emotional pain that's persistent and agonizing.
Exactly, and you might say the waiting was pure torture, even if you're just waiting for a bus or something.
Right, just to emphasize how unpleasant it was.
And as a verb, torture means to inflict such pain.
Okay, so it's both the act and the experience.
Exactly, and it always implies a deliberate infliction of suffering.
Got it. Now, what about torment?